They told you wealth was about luck, about chance, about being born in the right family, in the right place, with the right name. They were wrong. Wealth is not a product of circumstance. It is forged inside the furnace of the mind. Before a dollar ever reaches your hand, before opportunity ever knocks on your door, wealth begins as a quiet rebellion, a choice, a decision to defy mediocrity, to reject the ordinary, to rise. You don't need to chase money. You need to train the instrument that attracts it, your mind. And most people have never been taught how. They've been taught to obey, to follow, to stay safe. They've been trained to seek comfort, not conquest, conditioned to shrink, not to shape destiny. But you are here for a reason. You feel it, that inner pull, that restlessness in your chest, that fire you can't extinguish. It is your soul remembering the truth. You were born with the power to build a fortune, not just in currency, but in impact, in freedom, in purpose. But it begins with mastery of the mind, because the mind is either your master or your slave. And right now, most people are shackled, chained by doubt, imprisoned by fear, paralyzed by what-ifs, by opinions, by the echoes of other people's limitations. They wake up reacting, consuming, distracted by noise, addicted to comfort. They don't train their thoughts. They don't guard their attention. They don't command their emotions. And so their life becomes a mirror of their chaos. Understand this. Wealth does not begin in the bank. It begins in the temple of your thoughts. Until you take full ownership of your mental environment, nothing outside will change. Your reality is the projection of your dominant belief. Not what you say you believe, but what your subconscious is trained to expect. And if your mind expects struggle, expects lack, expects to lose, you will live a life that matches that expectation, over and over. The wealthy train differently. They train their thoughts like athletes train their bodies. Every belief is sculpted. Every habit is deliberate. Every day is an investment. They are not lucky. They are conditioned. So the question is not, can I become wealthy? The question is, am I willing to become mentally unrecognizable from who I am today? Because wealth is not for the person you are. It is for the person you are becoming, the one who chooses thought over reaction, vision over emotion, discipline over desire. It begins with belief, not the soft, feel-good kind, but belief forged in fire, the kind that won't flinch when failure strikes, the kind that keeps going when logic says stop. Napoleon Hill called it definiteness of purpose. It is the cornerstone of every empire. Carnegie had it, so did Edison, so did Ford. They were not men of luck. They were men of decision. They knew what they wanted, knew it so clearly it burned in their bones. And the mind, once given a clear target and unwavering command, becomes a magnet for the means to achieve it. But most drift. They dabble. They wait. They don't declare. And the mind never obeys a whisper. If you want wealth, you must speak with thunder. You must decide who you are, what you want, why it matters, and then align every cell of your being with that decision. Because clarity is power. When you are clear, distractions lose their pull, doubts lose their voice. The fog of confusion lifts, but clarity is earned. It doesn't come from scrolling through opinions or asking the world for permission. It comes from silence, from solitude, from staring your fears in the face until they dissolve, from asking yourself, what am I here to build? What do I refuse to die without giving this world? When you answer that, not with your lips, but with your life, you unlock a force most never touch. Vision. The inner movie that plays on loop in the minds of those who create the impossible. Walt Disney saw an entire kingdom before a single brick was laid. Henry Ford saw highways of cars when people still clung to horses. Steve Jobs saw the future in a garage. Vision is not fantasy. It is mental blueprints for what reality will become. And if you don't program your vision, society will. They will give you one of fear, of limits, of small dreams, beige lives, and 9-to-5 cages. But if your vision is big enough, clear enough, emotional enough, it will pull you through pain, through setbacks, through ridicule, because nothing is more dangerous than a human being who knows what they want and refuses to be denied. And yet knowing is not enough. You must become the vessel worthy of the vision, and that demands discipline, not the discipline of punishment, but the discipline of devotion. The wealthy are not more talented. They are more consistent. They do what others won't. Daily, without applause, without guarantees. They wake up when others sleep. They work when others drift. They study when others entertain. And they build habits, not just once, but until those habits become identity. They don't wait for motivation. They create motion. Because they know action creates clarity, action creates confidence, action creates capital. Wealth flows to the one who moves. And if you want to move mountains, you must move your body, your mind, your mission every single day. Because success is not found in the grand gesture. It is built in the grind, in the morning routines, in the focused hours, in the thousands of unseen, uncelebrated reps. Discipline is the bridge between thought and fortune, but only when aligned with purpose. Not every action is equal. Hustle without heart is hollow. Purpose is the compass that makes every step sacred. It's what transforms effort into legacy. Purpose is not found. It is claimed. It is the intersection of what burns in your soul and what the world desperately needs. It is the mission that makes quitting feel like betrayal. And once you connect to that, and once you fuse your mind, your time, your breath to a reason bigger than your comfort, you become dangerous. Because then, money becomes a tool, not the goal. Then, obstacles become sharpening stones, not signs to stop. Then, success becomes a moral obligation, because your purpose demands it. And the world needs you to win, not just for you, but for those waiting on the other side of your courage. Do you understand that? There are lives that will only change if you rise. There are people watching, silently praying for someone like you to show them it's possible. You are not training your mind for just yourself. You are training it for your children, your community, your future, and for every soul who's ever been told they weren't enough. So train with fire, with focus, with obsession, because a mind trained for wealth cannot be denied. But remember this, wealth is not built on effort alone. Effort without direction is a man rowing in circles. You can grind for a decade and end up no closer to freedom if your mind is not aligned with intelligent action. The wealthy think in systems, in leverage, in scale. They ask not, how hard can I work? But how can I make my mind, my time, and my ideas work for me while I sleep? That's not laziness. That's strategy. You must move from laborer to architect, from operator to owner, because as long as you only trade time for money, you will be chained to the very thing you're trying to escape. Begin asking better questions. How do I create value at scale? How do I multiply my time? How do I plant seeds that pay me forever? These are not questions for the rich. They are questions that create the rich. The answers won't come overnight. But the asking changes everything. It shifts your frequency. It elevates your thinking. It invites answers your old self could never even recognize. And those answers, they come through learning. Understand this. Your income will never outgrow your identity. And your identity is shaped by what you feed your mind. While the masses drown in entertainment, the wealthy devour education. Not the kind taught in school, the kind forged in experience, in books, in mentorship, in failure. They read, they reflect. They invest in coaches, masterminds, summits, not because they need more information, but because they need elevation. They don't ask, what does this cost? They ask, what is it costing me to not know this? This is how they collapse time. Because the right idea, the right strategy, the right connection can shave years off your journey. But if your ego is louder than your curiosity, you will stay broke. You must fall in love with learning. Because a wealthy mind is a flexible mind. Adaptability is survival. The world is shifting faster than ever. technology, markets, economies, attention. And those who cling to what worked yesterday will be buried by those who are still learning today. You must be fluid like water, sharp like steel, and humble enough to evolve. The mindset that got you here will not get you there. So upgrade it relentlessly, rewire the software of your beliefs, challenge every inherited limitation, audit your thoughts like a banker audits accounts, because every belief is either building your fortune or bleeding it. Tell me, what beliefs have you been carrying that are not yours? That money is evil, that success is selfish, that ambition is arrogance? Whose voice is that? A parent, a teacher, a society that needed you obedient and average? Burn it all. Replace it with truth. That money is a mirror. It reflects who you are, not just your skills, but your consciousness. That wealth doesn't corrupt, it reveals. That ambition is the heartbeat of progress. That success is not just your right, it is your responsibility. Because you cannot serve from an empty cup, you cannot give what you do not have, and poverty helps no one. So train your mind to expect abundance, to welcome it, to celebrate it. Because what you reject, you repel. You must learn to receive with the same grace you give, to believe deeply that you are worthy of wealth, not someday. Now, this is not arrogance, it is alignment. The universe does not respond to doubt, it responds to certainty. And certainty comes from gratitude. Yes, gratitude, not as a trend, not as a social media post, but as a state of being, as the fertile soil in which all wealth grows. Because when you live in gratitude, not just for what is, but for what will be, you are telling the world, I already have enough. I am already rich. And from that place, you attract more. Gratitude is not passive. It is powerful. It magnetizes opportunity. It silences fear. It grounds your ego and elevates your frequency. So train yourself to give thanks before the results. Thank the struggle for making you stronger. Thank the setbacks for sharpening your focus. Thank the silence for forcing you to listen deeper. This is how you command reality. You do not wait to feel rich. You act rich in thought, in vibration, in behavior. And from that energy, the universe conspires. But it will also test you. It will throw storms, delays, doubt, not to destroy you, but to prove you. Because resilience is the gatekeeper of wealth. Everyone wants the reward. Few are willing to wrestle the resistance. You must build mental armor. You must learn to stand when the world says kneel, to walk through fire without blinking, to fail publicly, painfully, and rise with more power than before. This is not about avoiding pain. It's about transforming it, turning rejection into redirection, turning fear into fuel, turning pressure into diamonds. Every empire builder you admire, every titan of wealth and industry, they were forged in trials. Lincoln lost dozens of elections before becoming the man who would free a nation. Disney was fired for lack of imagination before building the most imaginative company on earth. Edison failed 10,000 times before the light stayed on. They weren't lucky. They were relentless. And so must you be. Because wealth is not about how many times you win. It's about how many times you refuse to quit. You will be ignored, mocked, underestimated. Let them. Their doubt is irrelevant. Your destiny is not up for debate. This is your training. Every hardship, every late night, every loss, it is building you. You are not being buried. You are being planted. And if you keep growing, keep believing, keep moving, you will rise. Not someday, not maybe. I said, you will rise. But rise into what? Not just more zeros in your bank account. Not just status, symbols, or toys. You rise into a new identity, forged in fire, polished by purpose, anchored in truth. You rise into a version of you that no longer waits, no longer begs, no longer wonders if it's possible, because you know, and that knowing, that internal, unshakable certainty is wealth. Before the cash, before the clients, before the business, before the brand, it is who you become that changes everything. This is where most miss the mark. They chase external validation. They want applause, followers, attention, but they never train the internal compass. They never ask, can I lead myself when no one is watching? Can I stay faithful to the vision when there's no evidence yet? Because wealth is not built in public. It is built in silence. In the early mornings where the world is still asleep and you are studying, planning, building, in the quiet nights where no one sees your tears, your doubts, your battles, but you show up anyway. These moments, they matter more than you can imagine. The world doesn't reward effort. It rewards alignment. And alignment happens when your habits, your words, your thoughts, your emotions, your entire being all say the same thing. I am wealthy. I am ready. I am already him. I am already her. Not in arrogance, but in absolute quiet authority. And this is where true transformation begins. When you realize you don't need more time, more motivation, or more followers. You need more alignment. You need your thoughts to match your goals, your words to match your worth, your actions to match your future. Anything less is self-sabotage in disguise. So how do you build this alignment? You build it through rituals, rituals of excellence, rituals of clarity, rituals of power. You become someone who treats every day like it matters, because it does. Every morning is a blank check from the universe. What will you write on it? Will you cash it in excuses, distractions, and average choices? Or will you invest it in the empire only you can build? You must treat your time like a surgeon treats a scalpel, with precision, respect, and zero tolerance for waste. Because every wasted hour is a withdrawal from your future wealth. And if you don't run your day will run you. The wealthy know this. They don't wake up into chaos. They command their morning. They prime their mind before they check their phone. They feed their soul before they feed their inbox. They pour into themselves before pouring into the world. Because they know if you win the first hour, you can win the day. And if you win the day, every day, you win the life. This is what separates the uncommon from the average. Not luck, not privilege, but ritual. Daily disciplines that keep them aligned with their vision, even when the world tempts them to drift. And oh, how it will tempt you. Tempt you with noise, with gossip, with scrolling, with urgency that isn't yours. This is why you must guard your mind like royalty, because what enters your mind enters your life. If you allow garbage in, do not be surprised when mediocrity is what you live. But if you feed your mind with greatness, with wisdom, with fire, you will rise no matter where you started. So ask yourself now, what are you feeding your focus? Because your focus is the fuel for your fortune. And fortune flows where focus goes. But focus is a muscle. It must be trained. That means eliminating distractions, saying no without guilt, protecting your peace like it's your most precious investment, because it is. You must learn to choose long-term power over short-term pleasure. And yes, that means sacrifice. It means saying no to parties, to comfort, to convenience, not because you hate life, but because you love your future too much to betray it. And you know that every sacrifice is not loss, it is leverage. You give up now what you can always get later for what you may never have again. Your window, this moment, this year, this season of your life. It is not coming back. You will never be this hungry, this ready, this close again. So stop delaying. Stop negotiating with your calling. Burn the backup plan. Break the safety net. And decide, I will go all in. Because unless your dreams scare you, stretch you, demand all of you, they're not dreams, they're decorations. You were not born for decoration. You were born for dominion, to reign over your mind, your minutes, your mission, to take command of your internal world so fully, so fiercely, that the external world bows in response. Because that's what happens when you train your mind for wealth. You stop asking if. You start declaring when. You stop seeking permission. You start giving yourself power. You stop living in reaction. You start living in design. And design requires one more thing: faith. Not religious faith, but warrior faith. The kind that moves even when the road isn't visible. The kind that keeps building even when the bricks are cracking. The kind that whispers, "I am chosen," even when the world screams, "You are crazy." Because faith is not the absence of doubt. It is the defiance of it. It is belief so deep, so embedded in your bones, that nothing can steal it from you. This is the final layer of a wealthy mind. Not just clarity, not just discipline, not just action, but unshakable belief in the unseen. Because the greatest fortunes the world has ever known, they were built first in the invisible, in thoughts, in dreams, in energy. And if you dare to believe, if you dare to hold the vision before the evidence, you become a magnet for the miraculous. So hold it. Hold the vision when they laugh, when you fail, when nothing makes sense. Because the mind trained for wealth doesn't fold. It adapts. It persists. It commands. And it always collects. So now here you are, no longer the same. Not because something outside has changed, but because something within you has awakened. You've felt it, haven't you? That quiet power building through every word. That deep, ancient knowing rising in your chest. The part of you that's always known. You were never meant to be average. You were not born to beg. You were born to build, to construct a life so intentional, so powerful, so precise, that it shakes your bloodline forward and backward, that it becomes impossible for anyone in your family to think small again. That is what a trained mind does. It doesn't just make money, it creates legacy. And legacy is not built in some distant someday. It is built in now, in this moment, in this decision, in this sacred choice to never go back to who you were before you heard this voice. You see, there is a war happening inside you between the version of you that wants comfort and the version of you that craves conquest, between the part of you addicted to the old story and the one writing a new narrative so bold the world has no choice but to take notice. And you must choose which voice wins. Because every thought is a vote. Every belief is a contract. Every action is a declaration of who you are becoming. You are not just training for income. You are training for impact, for presence, for power, for peace earned through battle. Wealth is not a number. It is a vibration, a state of being, a decision to live fully, freely, fiercely, and on your terms. So from this moment forward, you speak differently. You move differently. You think like someone who is already there. No more shrinking. No more waiting for signs. No more seeking validation from people who gave up on their own dreams. Let them doubt you. Let them gossip. Let them misunderstand your obsession. They're supposed to. You are becoming something they've never seen before. Someone who trains their mind like a weapon, who walks like every room was built to hold their greatness, who speaks vision like prophecy, because they know their future is already real. And every single day from this point forward, you prove it. You don't chase wealth, you command it. You don't beg for opportunity, you create it. You don't hope for success, you embody it, because you have trained your mind to be a fortress, a kingdom, a weapon of light. And now, the world must respond. Let them say you changed. Let them say you're different. You are. Because your mind is no longer owned by doubt. It is no longer controlled by fear. It is no longer hijacked by scarcity. It is trained. And a trained mind becomes unstoppable. It doesn't flinch. It doesn't fold. It doesn't need external proof to know the internal truth. It simply moves. Forward, forward, always forward, until the dream is no longer a dream. It is your life. And the world will look at you, at what you've built, at what you've become, and they'll ask you how. They'll ask you what changed. They'll ask you the secret. And you'll smile, not out of arrogance, but with the deep calm of someone who knows the answer is simple. You trained your mind for wealth. And once that decision is made, nothing can stop you. Not time, not fear, not failure, not them, not fate. Because the mind that is trained builds its own destiny. And now, so will you. Go. Your empire awaits.